Today we will do lesson 3 about cell structures and functions. Today's essential question is, what are the different parts that make up a cell? I'll write that down. Before we start to do the main part of the studying, let's do some quizzes. Check T or true or false to show whether you think each statement is true or false. All cells have the same structures and function. All cells do not have the same structure or function. Prokaryotes do not have a nucleus. This is true because they do not need a nucleus. Plant cells are same as the animal cells. False. They have another cell membrane. All organisms are multicellular. Some are not multicellular because let's look at the bacteria. The bacteria is not multicellular, so not all organisms are multicellular. So let's erase that. And get on to the next one. Let's start it. What are the characteristics of eukaryotic cells? All organisms are made of one or more cells, but what kinds of cells? There are two types of organisms, prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Prokaryotes are made of a single prokaryotic cell. Eukaryotes are made of one or more eukaryotic cells. Prokaryotic cells do not have a nucleus or a membrane-bound organelles. Eukaryotic cells have a membrane-bound organelles, including a nucleus. Eukaryotic cells can differ from each other depending on their structure and function. A cell structure is the arrangement of its parts. A cell's function is the activity the parts carry out. For example, plant cells and animal cells have different parts that have different functions for the organism. This is what makes plants and animals so different from each other. Even cells with the same organism can differ from each other depending on their function. Most of the cells in multicellular organisms are specialized to perform a specific function. However, all eukaryotic cells share some characteristics. They have a nucleus, membrane-bound organelles, and parts that protect and support the cell. So, there are three types of cells. Eukaryotic cells, two kinds of cells, eukaryotic cells and prokaryotic cells. And the eukaryotic cell is divided into plant and animal cells. We'd better do that in a graph. So that will do it. Then we should read about parts that protect and support the cell. Every cell is surrounded by a cell membrane. The cell membrane acts as a barrier between the inside of the cell and the cell's environment. The cell membrane protects the cell and regulates that enters and leaves the cell. The cytoplasm is a region between the cell membrane and the nucleus that includes the fluid and all of organelles. Through the cytoplasm of eukaryotic cells is a cytoskeleton. The cytoskeleton is a network of protein filaments that give shape and support to cells. The cytoskeleton is also involved in cell division and its movement. It may help parts within the cell or move, or it may form structures that help the whole organism to move. So, Everything has a cell membrane. The cytoplasm is a region between the cell membrane and nucleus that includes fluid and all of the organelles. So the cytoplasm of eukaryotic cells is the cytoskeleton. So all of this has cytoplasm, but only the eukaryotic cells have a cytoskeleton. So we'll see the next one. Genetic material and nucleus. The nucleus is an organelle of eukaryotic cells that contain the cell's genetic material. Deoxyribonucleic acid or DNA is stored in the nucleus. DNA is a genetic material that contains information needed for cell processes, such as making proteins. Proteins perform the most actions of the cell. Although DNA is found in the nucleus, proteins are not made there. Instead, instructions for how to make proteins are stored in DNA. These instructions are sent out of the nucleus through the pores in the nuclear membrane. The nuclear membrane is a double layer. Each layer is similar in structure to the cell membrane. So the eukaryotic cells has a nucleus. And the nucleus has a nucleus membrane. And these three all have DNA. And these are similar in structure to the cell membrane. What organelles are found in plant and animal cells? Even though plant and animal cells are microscopic, they are very complex. They have many parts that function to keep the cell alive. Many of these parts are membrane-bound organelles that perform a specific function. Mitochondria. Organisms need energy for life processes. Cells carry out such processes for growth and repair, movement of materials into and out of the cell, and chemical processes. Cells get energy by breaking down food using a process called cellular respiration. Cellular respiration occurs in an organelle called the mitochondrion. In cellular respiration, cells use oxygen to release energy stored in food. For example, cells break down the sugar glucose to release the energy stored in the sugar. The mitochondria then transfer the energy released from the sugar to a molecule called adenosine triphosphate or ATP. Cells use ATP to carry out cell processes. Mitochondria have their own DNA and they have two membranes. The outer membrane is smooth. The inner membrane has many folds. Folds increase the surface area inside the mitochondria where cellular respiration occurs. Cells all have mitochondria. Ribosomes. Proteins control most chemical reactions of cells and provide structural support for cells and tissues. Some proteins are even exported out of the cell for other functions throughout the body. Making, packaging, and transporting proteins require many organelles. The ribosome is the organelle that makes protein by putting together chains of amino acids using instructions encoded in the cell's DNA. An amino acid is any of about 20 different carbon-based molecules that are used to make proteins. Almost all cells have ribosomes, which are the smallest organelles. Ribosomes are not enclosed in a membrane. In prokaryotes, the ribosomes are suspended freely in the cytoplasm. In eukaryotes, some ribosomes are free and others are attached to another organelle called endoplasmic reticulum. So all three of them have ribosomes. And we could pull all the same thing that all three have into here. Yeah. And they also all have ribosomes. And eukaryotic cells has an endoplasmic reticulum. And there's the Golgi complex. The membrane-bound organelle that packages and distributes materials, such as proteins, is called the Golgi complex. It is named after Camillo Golgi, the Italian scientist who first identified the organelle. The Golgi complex is a system of flattened membrane sacs. Lipid and proteins from the ER are delivered into the Golgi complex where they may be modified to do different jobs. The final products are enclosed in a piece of the Golgi complex's membrane. The membrane pinches up to form a small bubble of a cell. The vessel transports its content to other parts of the cell or out the cell. So all three has the Golgi complex. What additional parts are found in the plant cells? The plant cells differ from the animal cells, and here are some things. Cell wall. In addition to the cell membrane, plant cells have a cell wall. The cell wall is a rigid structure that surrounds the cell membrane, identified by the yellow line around the plant cell in this photo. Cell walls provide support and protection to the cell. Plants do not have a skeleton like many animals do, so they get their shape from the cell wall. The cells of fungi, archaea, bacteria, and some protists also have cell walls. Plant cells have cell walls. A large central vacuole and chloroplasts. And the part that I find in the animal cell is a lysosome. And so in all there is the different things and same things in all the cells. The three same things and the both same thing. The thing that all cells have is a cell membrane, cytoplasm, mitochondria, DNA, ribosomes, and the Golgi complex. Animal cells have endoplasm. The thing that eukaryotic and cells have the same are endoplasmic reticulum, cytoskeleton, and a nucleus. Something that an animal cell has a lysosome. The plants have a cell wall. Prokaryotic has a cell membrane, which all of them has. And before before and plant cells also have large central vacuole chloroplasts that lives here. And before ending this lesson, I'd like to show you the video I found here on YouTube. Please see.